Imagine a city that never sleeps, where lights flicker endlessly and the hum of ambition fills the air. In this city lives a young woman named Clara, her days a blur of deadlines and dreams. She is talented, driven, a rising star in her company, yet beneath her polished smile lies a quiet storm. Fear. It creeps into her thoughts like a thief in the night, whispering doubts about her worth, her future, her place in this vast, unpredictable world. Will she fail? Will she lose everything she's worked for? The questions gnaw at her, heavy as stones in her chest. Clara's fear is not unique. It is the same shadow that falls across so many hearts in our modern age, a world of constant change, where success feels like a race against time. We fear not measuring up, not being enough. We fear the unknown, the what-ifs that spiral in the dark hours. But what if fear is not the enemy we imagine? What if, instead, it is a teacher, pointing us toward a deeper truth? Long ago, the Buddha sat beneath a Bodhi tree, his heart open to the mysteries of existence. He saw fear in its raw form, not as a force to flee, but as a fleeting guest, born of our attachment to things that cannot last. All is impermanent, he taught. The job we cling to, the reputation we build, the future we try to control, these are like clouds passing across the sky. When we grasp at them, we invite fear to linger. But when we see their fleeting nature, we begin to find freedom. Clara, like so many of us, has not yet learned this truth. She sits late at night, her laptop glowing, her mind racing. Emails pile up, each one a demand, a reminder of what's at stake. Her heart pounds as she imagines losing her position, disappointing her family, fading into obscurity. She feels alone, as if no one else carries this weight. But the Buddha's wisdom whispers softly, "You are not your fears. They are but waves on the surface of your mind." One evening, exhausted, Clara steps outside her apartment, the city's noise a distant hum. She notices a small park, one she's passed 100 times but never entered. Something draws her in, a need for stillness, perhaps. She sits on a bench, the cool air brushing her skin, and for the first time in months, she breathes deeply. A single star blinks through the city's haze, and she wonders, what if I could let go of this fear, even for a moment? The Buddha once shared a story of a man chased by a tiger. Fleeing, he came to a cliff and climbed down a vine, only to find another tiger waiting below. As he clung to the vine, 2 mice, one black, one white, began to gnaw at it. Death seemed certain. Yet beside him grew a strawberry, red and ripe. With tigers above and below, with the vine fraying, he plucked the strawberry and ate it. How sweet it tasted! This is the wisdom of impermanence. Life is fragile, uncertain, yet within it are moments of beauty if we dare to see them. Clara, sitting in that park, feels a flicker of this truth. Her fear has not vanished, but it feels less like a cage. She wonders if there is another way to live, a way to face the uncertainty without being consumed. A proverb echoes through the ages. Fear is the shadow of attachment. Let go and light returns. Clara's journey is just beginning, but already she senses a possibility, a path not of escaping fear, but of walking through it, with courage, with grace. For in the heart of fear lies the seed of awakening, if only we are willing to look. Clara returns to her apartment, the star's faint light lingering in her mind. She tries to hold on to that moment of calm, but the weight of her days soon presses in again. Work demands her attention, her phone buzzing with notifications, yet beneath it all something deeper stirs. It is not just the fear of what lies ahead, but the ache of what came before. Old wounds, carried silently, like stones in a riverbed, smoothed by time, but never gone. We all carry such wounds. A harsh word from a parent, a betrayal by a friend, the loss of someone we loved. These pains shape us, sometimes more than we know. For Clara, the pain is tied to her childhood of father who left when she was young, a mother who worked tirelessly to fill the gap. Clara learned early to be strong, to hide her hurt, to prove she was enough. But the hurt remains, a quiet ache that surfaces in moments of stillness. The Buddha taught that pain is part of life, the first noble truth. To live is to encounter suffering. Yet suffering is not the same as pain. Pain is the wound. Suffering is the story we build around it, the way we cling to it, letting it define us. Clara's suffering comes from her belief that she must always be strong, that her father's absence means she is unworthy of love. She carries this story like a heavy cloak, unaware that she can set it down. One night, unable to sleep, Clara finds an old photo album tucked away in a drawer. She flips through it, her fingers tracing images of her younger self smiling, carefree, before the weight settled in. A memory surfaces. Her mother, exhausted after a long shift, sitting with her at the kitchen table, teaching her to fold paper cranes. Each fold is a wish, her mother said. Make it with care. Clara folded 1,000 cranes that year, wishing for her father to return. He never did. The Buddha once told of a woman named Kissa Gotami, whose infant son had died. Mad with grief, she carried his body from house to house, begging for medicine to bring him back. A wise man sent her to the Buddha, who said, "Bring me a mustard seed from a home untouched by death." Kissa searched, but every home had known loss. Slowly she understood. Death, pain, and loss are woven into the fabric of life. No one escapes them. Kissa returned to the Buddha, her heart still heavy but her mind clearer. She buried her son and began to walk a path of understanding, finding solace not in denying pain but in seeing its shared nature. Clara, holding that photo album, feels a tear slip down her cheek. For the first time, she wonders if her pain is not hers alone, but part of something larger, a thread connecting her to others. She thinks of her mother, folding cranes despite her own exhaustion, pouring love into each careful crease. Perhaps strength is not in hiding pain, but in facing it and letting it be. The Buddha's teaching of the Four Noble Truths offers a map for this journey. The second truth tells us that suffering arises from craving for things to be different, for pain to vanish, for life to bend to our will. Clara craves the father who left, the certainty that she is enough. Yet the third truth whispers of hope. There is a way to end suffering, not by erasing pain, but by changing how we meet it. The fourth truth, the Noble Eightfold Path, points to a life of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. Clara begins to notice small moments of choice. At work, when a critical email arrives, she pauses before spiraling into fear. She takes a breath, feels the air fill her lungs, and lets the moment pass. It is not a cure, not yet, but a glimpse of light. She starts to seek out quiet spaces, moments in her day to simply be. One morning, on her way to work, she stops at a small bookstore. A book on mindfulness catches her eye, its cover simple, unassuming. She buys it not knowing why, but feeling a pull towards something new. In the evenings, Clara reads a few pages, her mind wrestling with the ideas. Mindfulness, the book explains, is not about emptying the mind, but about seeing clearly, watching thoughts and feelings without being swept away. The Buddha likened it to a lute. If the strings are too tight, they snap. Too loose, they cannot play. The mind, too, needs balance, neither clinging nor fleeing, but resting in the present. One night, Clara tries a simple practice. She sits on her couch, closes her eyes, and listens to the sounds around her, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant wail of a siren. She notices her thoughts drifting to tomorrow's deadlines, to her father's absence, but she gently brings her focus back to her breath. In, out, in, out. For a few minutes, the weight lifts. She feels not fixed, but lighter, as if a door has cracked open. A saying from the Buddha's time lingers in her mind. In the stillness of now, fear and pain dissolve. Clara is far from mastering this, but she senses its truth. The bookstore becomes a weekly ritual, a place where she finds not just books, but moments of refuge. She begins to notice others there, people reading quietly, searching, like her, for something to ease their hearts. This is the beginning of awakening, not a grand revelation, but a quiet shift. Clara is learning to pause, to breathe, to see her pain not as a prison, but as a teacher. The path is long, and she is only at its start, but the light she glimpsed in that park, in that breath, grows a little brighter. For in the heart of mindfulness lies the seed of peace, waiting to unfold. Clara's days begin to shift, subtle as the turning of seasons. The bookstore, with its soft light and scent of old pages, becomes her sanctuary. She carries the mindfulness book everywhere, its edges warm from her touch. Yet the weight of her fears and old wounds still lingers like a river current pulling at her feet. She notices how tightly she holds on to things, her need to control outcomes, to prove herself, to keep the pain at bay. Each morning, she wakes with a knot in her chest, wondering if she can ever truly be free. The Buddha taught that letting go is not about loss, but about liberation. We cling to ideas of who we are, what we need, what life should be. This clinging, he said, is the root of suffering. Clara's clinging shows in her endless to-do lists, her late nights perfecting presentations, her fear of making a single mistake. She believes that if she just works harder, plans better, she can outrun the uncertainty. But the more she grips, the heavier life feels. One afternoon, Clara's manager calls her into a meeting. A project she poured months into is being shelved, not because of her work, but because of budget cuts. She feels the ground slip beneath her. Anger flares, then despair. She wants to fight, to fix it, to prove the decision wrong. But as she walks home, the mindfulness book heavy in her bag, she remembers a story the Buddha told. A man built a raft to cross a river, carrying it on his back long after he reached the other side. The raft was useful, the Buddha said, but once the river is crossed, set it down. Do not carry what you no longer need. Clara sits in her apartment, the city's hum a faint pulse beyond her window. She thinks of the project, her effort, her identity tied to its success. What if she let it go? Not the work itself, but the need for it to define her. She tries a practice from her book. Sitting quietly, she visualizes her anger as a stone in her hand. She imagined setting it down, not with force, but with care, like placing a fragile thing on the ground. Her breath slows, and the knot in her chest softens, just a little. Letting go, she learns, is not a single act but a practice, a gentle unraveling. The Buddha spoke of non-self, the idea that we are not fixed, separate beings, but part of a vast, changing flow. Clara's pain comes from believing she must be the perfect worker, the perfect daughter, the perfect self. But what if she is not a single, unchanging thing? What if she is allowed to fail, to change, to simply be? She begins small experiments. At work, she stops checking her email every 5 minutes. She says no to an extra task, her heart racing but her resolve firm. One evening she writes a letter to her father, not to send, but to release. She pours out her hurt, her longing, then folds the paper and tucks it away. It is not gone, but it feels lighter, like a leaf slipping from a branch to float on the river. A proverb from the Buddha's teachings echoes in her mind. Like a leaf on the river, flow without crossing. Clara is not free of worry, but she is learning to loosen her grip. She notices moments of ease, a laugh with a coworker, the warmth of her morning coffee, the way the city lights shimmer after rain. These are not solutions, but reminders that life is more than her struggles. By letting go, she makes space for something new, something that feels like freedom. Clara's world feels softer now, as if the edges of her days have been smoothed by her small acts of compassion. She feels a sense of connection to others. Yet loneliness clings to her, a sense that her struggles are hers alone. In the city's endless rush, she feels unseen, disconnected, as if no one truly knows her. This loneliness is an ache we all know. We live in a world of constant connection screens, messages, notifications, yet we often feel more alone than ever. Clara sees it in the faces of strangers on the subway, in the hurried conversations at work. She wonders if there is a way to bridge this gap, to find meaning not just within herself but with others. The Buddha taught that compassion is the medicine for a wounded heart. He spoke of loving kindness, or metta, as a practice of wishing well for all beings, friends, strangers, even those who have caused us pain. Compassion, he said, begins with ourselves but flows outward, like a river finding its way to the sea.